The wanderer drifted through the dark space between stars. Inside the small ship, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, staring at the empty star map. His fingers drummed against the armrest. They had been without work for 3 weeks now. 3 long weeks of watching their fuel reserves drop lower and lower. "Jake, we've got something," Amy Rodriguez called from the pilot seat. Her hands moved across the control panel, pulling up a message on the main screen. Jake leaned forward. The message was encrypted, which meant money. Good money. Only people with serious problems paid for that level of security. "Can you crack it?" he asked. Amy smiled. "Already done. You're not going to believe this one." The message played. The image showed a tall, elegant alien woman. Her skin had a pale blue tone, and her eyes were a bright silver color. She wore armor that looked ancient but well-maintained. Behind her, Jake could see flames and smoke. "I am Queen Saravan of the Valthyr Empire," the woman said. Her voice was calm, but Jake heard the fear underneath. "My world is under attack. The Kreth Dominion has betrayed us. My armies are destroyed. My people are dying. I have less than 100 guards remaining. In 3 days, they will execute me and claim my throne." The message paused. The Queen looked directly at the camera. "I know humans are new to this region of space. I know you have no reason to help us. But I am willing to pay everything I have left for anyone brave enough or foolish enough to answer this call." The message ended. The cockpit fell silent. Ben Carter poked his head through the doorway from the engine room. Grease covered his hands and face. "Did she just say the Valthyr Empire? Those guys think they're better than everyone else in the galaxy." "They do," Lisa Hayes agreed. She sat at her medical station organizing supplies. "And the Kreth Dominion doesn't mess around. They're known for wiping out entire planets." Jake replayed the message. He watched the Queen's face again. Something about her eyes caught his attention. Even with her world burning, even facing death, she held her head high. She wasn't begging. She was offering a deal. "This is suicide," Amy said. "The Kreth probably have a whole fleet around that planet. We'd never make it through." "She's right," Ben added. "Our ship is tough, but it's not that tough. We'd be flying straight into a war zone." Jake stood up and walked to the viewing window. Stars stretched out in all directions. Somewhere out there, a queen was counting down her last hours. Every other mercenary crew in the sector had probably gotten that same message, and every single one of them had probably deleted it. "How much is she offering?" Jake asked. Amy checked the message details. Her eyes went wide. Jake? She's offering the entire Valthyr royal treasury, plus exclusive trading rights with whatever's left of her empire." "If anything's left," Ben muttered. Lisa walked over to stand beside Jake. She was the newest member of his crew, but she had good instincts. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that woman is about to die because nobody will help her," Jake said quietly. "I'm thinking the Kreth are probably celebrating right now, thinking they've already won." "They probably have won," Amy pointed out. "Jake, I love your optimism, but this isn't some small raid. This is a full military invasion." Jake turned to face his crew. Amy, who had flown with him for 5 years. Ben, who could fix anything with duct tape and prayer. Lisa, who had saved all their lives more times than he could count. "You're right," he said. "This is crazy. This is probably going to get us killed, so I'm putting it to a vote. Do we take this job or not?" The 3 of them looked at each other. Jake could see them having a silent conversation. Finally, Ben shrugged. "Well, we're broke anyway," the engineer said. "Might as well go out doing something interesting." Amy laughed. "You're all insane." "But yeah, I'm in. I always wanted to see the Valthyr homeworld. Shame it'll be while it's being invaded." Lisa nodded. "Someone should help her. Might as well be us." Jake felt something warm in his chest. Pride, maybe, or gratitude. He had the best crew in the galaxy, even if they were all crazy. "All right then," he said. Amy, set a course for Valthier space. Ben, I need you to rig up something that can get us through their blockade. Lisa, prepare the medical bay. This is going to get messy. The crew scattered to their stations. The Wanderer's engines roared to life. Jake sat back down in his command chair and pulled up everything he could find about the Kreth Dominion. They were brutal. They were efficient. They didn't take prisoners, and they didn't negotiate. When the Kreth decided to take something, they took it completely. But they had probably never fought humans before. Humans were new to this part of space. The big empires like the Valthier barely knew they existed. The Kreth probably thought humans were just another weak species to ignore. Jake smiled. That was their first mistake. He opened a return channel to send a message back to the Queen. It took a moment to find the right words. Queen Saravin, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Wanderer. We received your message. We're coming to help. Hold on for 3 more days. We'll be there. He sent the message and hoped it would reach her in time. The Wanderer jumped into faster-than-light travel, racing across the stars toward a war zone. In his command chair, Jake went over their supplies. 4 people, 1 small ship, a handful of weapons, and a whole lot of determination against an empire. Amy was right. This was insane. But Jake had learned something in his years as a mercenary. The biggest victories didn't come from having the most ships or the biggest guns. They came from being willing to fight when everyone else had given up. The Kreth thought they had already won. The rest of the galaxy had abandoned the Valthier Queen to her fate. That was their second mistake. Jake Morrison didn't know how to quit, and he was about to teach the Kreth Dominion what happened when you counted humans out too early. The Valthier homeworld appeared on the viewing screen, and Jake's stomach sank. The planet was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green continents. But surrounding it like a metal cage sat dozens of Kreth warships. Each one was 10 times the size of the Wanderer. Well, this is worse than I thought, Amy said. Her hands moved across the controls, keeping them hidden behind a small moon. Ben joined them in the cockpit. I've got our disguise ready. The Kreth use a specific signal pattern for their supply ships. I can mimic it, but it won't hold up under close inspection. How close is close? Jake asked. If they scan us directly, we're done. The signal will look right, but our ship profile is all wrong. Jake studied the formation of enemy ships. They were organized in a standard blockade pattern, military textbook stuff. That meant they were confident. Overconfident, maybe. There, he pointed at a gap between 2 cruisers. Supply ships would come through there. We go in fast, broadcasting Ben's fake signal. By the time they realize something's wrong, we'll already be in the atmosphere. And if they shoot us down? Lisa asked from behind them. Then this will be a very short rescue mission, Jake said. Ben, activate the signal. Amy, take us in. Nice and smooth, like we belong here. The Wanderer moved out from behind the moon. Ben's fake signal broadcast across all Kreth frequencies. Jake held his breath as they approached the blockade. A message came through in the Kreth language. Ben had prepared for this too. He played back a recorded response they had stolen from actual Kreth communications. The massive warships didn't move. The Wanderer slipped between them, heading for the planet below. We're through the first layer, Amy reported. Sweat ran down her face. Entering atmosphere now. The ship shook as they hit the upper atmosphere. Jake watched the sensor screen, waiting for alarms, waiting for missiles, but nothing came. They broke through the clouds. Below them, Jake saw a landscape of destruction. Cities burned, forests were flattened, and in the distance, standing alone on a hill, was a massive palace. It was surrounded by Kreth ground forces. That's got to be it, Jake said. Get us as close as you can. Amy pushed the Wanderer into a steep dive. Alarms started blaring. The Kreth had finally noticed them. Incoming fire, Ben shouted. Hold on! Amy yanked the controls hard. The ship spun, dodging a stream of energy blasts. She pushed the engines to maximum, racing toward the palace. The ground rushed up to meet them. At the last second, Amy pulled up, but it wasn't enough. The Wanderer hit the ground hard, skidding across a courtyard before slamming into a wall. Jake's head cracked against his chair. Stars exploded across his vision. He heard Lisa groan behind him. "Everyone alive?" he called out. "Define alive," Ben muttered, pulling himself up. The rear hatch exploded open. Jake spun, grabbing his weapon, but the figures rushing in weren't Kreth. They were Valthyr guards, tall and imposing in their armor. The lead guard pointed a weapon at Jake. "Identify yourself, human." "Captain Jake Morrison. We're here to help your queen." The guard stared at him for a long moment. Then he lowered his weapon. "I am Commander Velthar. Follow me, quickly." They ran through corridors of ancient stone. Jake heard explosions in the distance. Weapon fire echoed through the halls. The palace was already under attack. Velthar led them to a large throne room. In the center stood Queen Saravin, exactly as she had appeared in the message. She was directing her guards, organizing defenses. When she saw Jake and his crew, she stopped. "You came," she said. She sounded surprised. "We made a promise," Jake replied. "One small ship, 4 humans." The queen looked at them with her silver eyes. "The Kreth have thousands of soldiers surrounding this palace. They have orbital weapons that will destroy us at dawn. What do 4 humans think they can accomplish?" Jake met her gaze. "Show me your defenses. Show me everything you have. Then we'll figure out what we can accomplish." For the next hour, Velthar explained their situation. It was bad. Less than 80 Valthyr guards remained. Their shields would hold for maybe 12 more hours. The Kreth had an orbital cannon aimed directly at the palace. When it fired, nothing would be left. "The cannon is aboard their command ship," Velthar said, pointing at a map. "But it's impossible to reach. Even if we could get through their forces, the ship itself is heavily defended." Jake studied the map. An idea was forming. A crazy, probably impossible idea. "What if we don't fight through their forces?" he said. "What if we sneak past them?" "Sneak past an entire army?" Velthar looked at him like he was insane. "We did it with the blockade," Amy pointed out. "Ben's signal trick worked once. Maybe it could work again." Ben was already thinking. "The Kreth use automated defense systems. If we can hack into their network, we could upload fake authorization codes." "That's insane," Velthar said. But Jake saw something in his eyes. Hope, maybe. "Insane seems to be working for us today," Jake said. "Commander, I need your best infiltration specialist. Amy, you're with me. Ben, Lisa, you stay here and help with the palace defenses." Lisa grabbed his arm. "Jake, you were just in a crash. You need medical attention." "I'll get medical attention after we save the queen," he said. 2 hours later, Jake, Amy, and Velthar were crawling through the wreckage of a destroyed Kreth transport. Ben had worked his magic with their communications, making them appear to be a Kreth patrol. The command ship loomed above them, a massive metal fortress floating in the sky. Getting inside would be the easy part. The hard part would be not getting killed once they were in. They climbed aboard using magnetic boots. The ship's hull was cold against Jake's hands. His head still throbbed from the crash, but he pushed the pain aside. Inside, the ship was a maze of corridors. Kreth soldiers marched past them, but the fake signals held. They looked like just another patrol. "The cannon control room is 3 levels up," Velthar whispered. They moved quickly through the ship. Jake's heart pounded. Every corner could hide an enemy. Every door could be their end. Finally, they reached the control room. 6 Kreth operators worked at consoles, monitoring the orbital weapon. In 4 hours, it would fire and destroy the palace. Jake looked at Amy and Velthar. They nodded. Ready. He kicked open the door. The fight was fast and brutal. The Kreth were trained warriors, but Jake fought like his life depended on it. Because it did. He used furniture as weapons, threw equipment, tackled enemies into walls. This wasn't honor combat. This was survival. Velthar fought with precision, his blade singing through the air. Amy took out 2 Kreth with perfectly aimed shots. But more were coming. Alarms screamed through the ship. "Ben, now would be a great time for that override," Jake shouted into his communicator. "Working on it," Ben's voice crackled back. A Kreth soldier aimed a massive weapon at Velthar. The commander was busy fighting 2 others. He didn't see the danger. Jake threw himself forward, pushing Velthar aside. The blast hit Jake instead, searing across his shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. He fell, gasping. "Got it!" Ben's voice rang out. "Weapon disabled!" Amy grabbed Jake, hauling him up. "We need to go, now!" They ran. Kreth soldiers poured into the corridors behind them. Velthar led the way, his knowledge of ship layouts saving them more than once. They reached the exterior hatch. Amy practically threw Jake outside. The ground was far below. "This is going to hurt," Amy said. They jumped. The fall seemed to last forever. They hit the ground hard, rolling. Jake's injured shoulder screamed. But they were alive. Velthar's soldiers found them, pulling them toward the palace. Behind them, the command ship's lights flickered. The weapon was dead. They had done it. But as they reached the palace, Jake saw the Kreth army gathering. Thousands of soldiers preparing for a final assault. Without the orbital weapon, they would take the palace the old-fashioned way. The real battle was about to begin. Jake woke up in pain. His shoulder burned where the Kreth weapon had hit him. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "Stay still, human." Queen Saravin stood over him, her hands glowing with a soft blue light. "The Valthyr healing technology works differently than yours. Moving will slow the process." "How long was I out?" Jake asked. 3 hours. The Kreth will attack at dawn. That gives us 2 more hours to prepare." The Queen's hands moved over his wound. Jake felt the pain slowly fade. He watched her face as she worked. Up close, he could see the weight she carried, the lines around her eyes, the tension in her jaw. "Why did you come?" she asked quietly. "Your species barely knows mine. We've never helped you. We've never even spoken to humans before this week." Jake thought about his answer. "You asked for help. Nobody else answered. Seemed like the right thing to do." Saravin's hands stopped moving. She looked at him with those silver eyes. "The right thing? Not for honor? Not for glory? Not even for the payment I offered?" "The payment helps," Jake admitted. "But no. I came because someone needed help." "That makes no sense," the Queen said. "In Valthyr culture, we act out of duty, honor, and blood obligation. Helping a stranger without any of these bonds is illogical." "Maybe, but it's very human." The Queen finished healing his wound and stepped back. "You saved Commander Velthar's life. You disabled a weapon that would have killed us all. You've done more for my people in 1 day than most allies do in years. I don't understand you, Jake Morrison." Before Jake could respond, Lisa rushed into the room. "They're coming! Thousands of them!" Jake stood up, testing his shoulder. It still hurt, but it worked. "Time to earn that payment." The palace defenders gathered in the throne room. 80 Valthyr guards stood in perfect formation. They looked ready to die with honor. That was the problem. "Listen up," Jake said, his voice carrying across the room. "I know you're all trained warriors. I know you follow codes of honor and tradition. But honor isn't going to save you today. The Kreth have you outnumbered 20 to 1. If you fight them the way you've been trained, you'll be dead in an hour." The guards looked offended. Velthar stepped forward. "What are you suggesting, human?" "I'm suggesting we fight dirty. We fight smart. We use every advantage we have. Honor be damned." "That's not the Valthyr way," one guard said. "The Valthyr way is about to get you all killed," Jake shot back. "Your queen needs you alive, not dead with honor. So here's what we're going to do." For the next hour, Jake outlined his plan. The Valthyr were horrified at first. ambushes, traps, false retreats, psychological warfare. None of it fit their code of honor. But Queen Saravin backed him up. If Captain Morrison says this is how humans win battles, then we will follow his lead. Honor means nothing if we're all dead. Ben worked with the palace engineers, rigging explosives in the corridors. Lisa taught the guards basic field medicine. Amy positioned the Wanderers' remaining weapons to cover the main approaches. Then the Kreth came. They attacked in waves, just as Jake predicted. The first wave hit the main gate. The Valthyr guards wanted to meet them head-on. Jake made them wait. "Let them get close," he said. "Closer. Closer. Now." Ben triggered the explosives. The corridor collapsed, burying the first wave. The Kreth were shocked. This wasn't how civilized warfare worked. The second wave came from the east wall. Again, the guards wanted to fight. Again, Jake made them retreat, leading the Kreth into prepared ambush positions. The palace defenders struck from the shadows, then disappeared before the Kreth could respond. "This is cowardice!" one Kreth commander screamed over open channels. "This is winning," Jake replied. Hour after hour, the battle raged. The Kreth kept coming, and the defenders kept fighting. But Jake's tactics were working. The Kreth were used to honorable combat. They didn't know how to handle an enemy that refused to fight fair. But the defenders were getting tired. They couldn't keep this up forever. At hour 15, the Kreth broke through the western defenses. Dozens of soldiers poured into the palace. The guards fought desperately, but they were being pushed back toward the throne room. Jake found himself fighting side by side with Velthar. The Valthyr commander had learned Jake's style, using every trick and tactic the human had taught him. "There's too many!" Velthar shouted. Jake looked around. He was out of ammunition. His weapon was just a metal club now. They were being pushed back into the throne room where Queen Saravin waited with the last reserves. This was it. The final stand. The Kreth commander, a massive warrior covered in battle scars, stepped forward. "Surrender the queen, and the rest of you may leave alive." Jake stepped between the Kreth commander and the throne room. Behind him, he heard Saravin stand up. "No," Jake said simply. "Then you will die, human." "Probably, but not easily. And not quietly." The Kreth commander laughed. "You have no weapons. You're wounded. You're tired. What can one human possibly do?" Jake smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I can make you work for it." He charged. The fight was brutal. Jake used everything, his fists, his feet, his head. He bit, he scratched, he fought with a savagery that shocked the Kreth. This wasn't civilized combat. This was survival at its most basic. The Kreth commander was stronger, but Jake was faster. More importantly, Jake was unpredictable. He didn't follow any combat style the Kreth recognized. Behind him, Jake heard the Valthyr guards rally. His refusal to surrender had given them new strength. They pushed forward with renewed energy. Amy brought the Wanderer around, its weapons firing into the Kreth positions. Ben triggered his last set of explosives, collapsing a tower onto enemy forces. The tide turned. The Kreth, who had been so confident, suddenly found themselves fighting an enemy that wouldn't quit, an enemy that ignored every rule of warfare they knew. The Kreth commander fell to Jake's final strike. Around him, the enemy soldiers began to retreat. They had never faced anything like this before. By the time the sun rose over the palace, the Kreth were in full retreat. Against all odds, the defenders had won. Jake collapsed against a wall, exhausted beyond measure. He looked around at the survivors. Half the Valthyr guards were wounded. The palace was in ruins. But they were alive. Queen Saravin walked through the battlefield. She looked at her people, battered but victorious. She looked at the human crew who had made it possible. Then she stood tall, her voice carrying across the courtyard. "Bring me the mortal." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Jake. He pushed himself up, confused and tired. He walked to stand before the Queen, limping on his injured leg. He was covered in blood and ash. He probably looked terrible, but Saravan looked at him like he was the most important person in the galaxy. "You came when no one else would," she said, her voice formal now. "You fought when victory was impossible. You taught my people that survival is more important than honor. You've saved my empire." Jake shook his head. "Your people saved themselves. I just showed them a different way to fight." "Exactly," the Queen said. She turned to address her court. "This human and his crew have proven themselves more valuable than entire fleets. They will be honored as heroes of the Valthier Empire." Jake didn't know what to say. He had just wanted to help. He hadn't expected any of this, but as he looked at Queen Saravan, at Velthar standing proudly despite his wounds, at his own crew grinning with exhaustion, he realized something important. They had started something here, something that went beyond one battle or one contract. They had built a bridge between two species, and that might be worth more than all the treasure in the galaxy. Jake stood in the throne room 3 days after the battle. His wounds were healed thanks to Valthier medical technology. The palace was still damaged, but workers were already rebuilding. Outside, the Kreth fleet had withdrawn, retreating to lick their wounds. Queen Saravan sat on her throne, surrounded by her advisors. The room was filled with Valthier nobles, all watching Jake with expressions ranging from curiosity to distrust. "Captain Morrison," the Queen said formally, "you and your crew have earned the payment I promised. The Valthier Treasury will transfer the agreed amount to your accounts. You also have our gratitude and our friendship." Jake relaxed. This sounded like a polite dismissal. They would get paid and leave, simple and clean. "However," Saravan continued, "I have another proposition for you." Jake tensed again. Nothing good ever followed the word, however. "I want you to stay," the Queen said. "I want you to become my chief military advisor. I want to form a formal alliance between humanity and the Valthier Empire." The room exploded with noise. Nobles shouted protests. Some looked angry, others shocked. "Your Majesty, this is madness," one noble said. "Humans are a primitive species. They have no understanding of galactic politics." "They have no honor," another added. "They fight like animals," a third noble said, disgust in his voice. Jake felt his temper rise, but Saravan raised her hand. The room fell silent. "They fight to win," she said coldly. "Which is why we're all still alive. Captain Morrison's tactics saved this empire. His willingness to help when no one else would has earned my trust." She looked directly at Jake. "What say you, Captain?" Jake looked at his crew. Amy shrugged, leaving the decision to him. Ben looked thoughtful. Lisa nodded slightly, encouraging him. "I'm a mercenary, Your Majesty," Jake said. "Not a politician. I don't know anything about running an empire." "I don't need you to run the empire," Saravan replied. "I need you to teach my military to think differently, to adapt, to survive." She paused. "And I need someone I can trust to tell me the truth, even when it's uncomfortable." "You have advisors for that," Jake said, gesturing at the nobles around them. "I have advisors who tell me what they think I want to hear," the Queen corrected. "You've already proven you'll tell me what I need to hear." Jake was about to refuse. This was too much responsibility, too much politics. He was a ship captain, not a diplomat. Then Amy spoke up. "Can we talk about this? The crew, I mean?" Saravan nodded. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." Outside in the courtyard, the 4 humans gathered. The Valthier guards gave them space. "This is crazy, right?" Jake said. "We should take the money and go." "Why?" Lisa asked. "Jake, we've been drifting for years, taking whatever jobs we could find, never really belonging anywhere." "She's right," Ben said. "And these people need help. The Kreth will come back. Maybe not today, Maybe not next month, but they'll come back. Amy crossed her arms. Plus, did you see the looks on those nobles' faces? They think we're beneath them. Part of me wants to stay just to prove them wrong. Jake laughed despite himself. So we're staying out of spite? We're staying because it's the right thing to do, Lisa said. Isn't that what you told the Queen? We came because it was right, not for payment or glory. Jake looked at his crew, his family. They had followed him into hell and back. If they wanted to stay, he would stay. All right, he said. Let's do this. They returned to the throne room. Jake gave the Queen their answer. Saravin smiled. It was the first genuine smile Jake had seen from her. Excellent. Commander Velthar will work with you to integrate human tactics into our military training. I'll have quarters prepared for you in the palace. Over the next weeks, Jake settled into his new role. It was harder than fighting. He had to attend meetings, review battle plans, and navigate Valthyr politics. The nobles still didn't like him, but they couldn't argue with results. Velthar became his closest ally. The Valthyr commander had seen Jake fight. He trusted the human's instincts. Your people think very differently, Velthar said one day during training. You see warfare as a problem to solve, not a ritual to perform. We learned that the hard way, Jake replied. Humans fought each other for thousands of years. We got very good at finding new ways to win. Jake also spent time with the Queen. Not formal meetings, but conversations. She wanted to understand humanity, and Jake wanted to understand the Valthyr. Your culture values honor above all else, Jake observed. But that honor almost got you killed. Honor gives life meaning, Saravin replied. Without it, what separates us from beasts? Compassion, Jake said. Kindness. The willingness to help others even when there's no benefit to yourself. The Queen considered this. Is that why you came? Compassion? Maybe. Or maybe I just couldn't stand the thought of someone dying because nobody cared enough to help. These conversations became regular. Jake realized he was becoming more than just an advisor. He was becoming a friend. Someone the Queen could talk to without the weight of her crown between them. But not everyone was happy about this. Courtier Drenvak watched Jake with cold eyes. He had been one of the Queen's advisors before the human arrived. Now his influence was waning. Drenvak had secrets. He had been the one who gave the Kreth information about the palace defenses. He had expected the Queen to die and a new ruler to take power, a ruler he could control. But Jake had ruined that plan, and now Drenvak needed a new one. He began to gather allies, other nobles who resented the human's presence. Together, they plotted in shadows. Meanwhile, Jake noticed something else. The way Saravin looked at him sometimes. The way she sought his opinion even on matters that had nothing to do with warfare. The way she smiled when he walked into a room. She likes you, Amy said one evening. They were in the Wanderer, which was being repaired in the palace hangar. She's the Queen, Jake protested. I'm just some human mercenary. You're the human who saved her life and her empire, Lisa pointed out. And she's not looking at you like you're just a mercenary. Jake didn't know what to do with that information. He liked Saravin, respected her, admired her strength. But anything more seemed impossible. They were from different species, different cultures, different worlds. One night, Saravin invited Jake to the palace gardens. They walked among alien flowers under twin moons. Do you miss Earth? She asked. Sometimes, Jake admitted, but I left for a reason. Earth felt too small, too limited. I wanted to see what else was out there. And have you found what you were looking for? Jake thought about it. I found a crew I care about. I found work that matters. And now I've found a cause worth fighting for. He looked at her. Yeah, I think I have. Saravin stopped walking. Jake, I need to tell you something. The nobles are plotting against you. Drenvak especially. He sees you as a threat to his power. Let them plot, Jake said. I'm not here for power. I know. That's what makes you dangerous to them. You can't be bought or manipulated. She hesitated. Be careful. Please. There was something in her voice. Concern that went beyond a queen worried about her advisor. I will, Jake promised. What neither of them knew was that Drenvac was watching from the shadows. He saw the way they looked at each other. The way they stood close, the way the queen smiled at the human. It gave him an idea, a terrible, perfect idea. If he couldn't remove the human through politics, he would do it another way. He would arrange an accident. And if the queen happened to die with him, well, that would solve two problems at once. Drenvac smiled in the darkness and went to make his arrangements. The celebration was Saravin's idea. 1 month after the battle, the palace was restored. The Kreth had retreated completely from Valthir space. It was time to honor the victory and the allies who made it possible. The great hall filled with nobles, warriors, and diplomats from across the empire. Jake wore formal clothes that felt uncomfortable and strange. Amy, Ben, and Lisa stood with him, equally awkward in their fancy outfits. I feel like I'm wearing a costume, Ben muttered. You look nice, Lisa said, adjusting his collar. Queen Saravin entered, and the room fell silent. She wore ceremonial armor that gleamed like silver. She looked every bit the powerful ruler she was. The ceremony began. Saravin gave speeches about unity and strength. She awarded medals to the surviving guards. Then she called Jake and his crew forward. These 4 humans came when no one else would, she announced. They risked everything for people they had never met. Today, we formally recognize them as honored allies of the Valthir Empire. The crowd applauded. Most of it was genuine, but Jake noticed some faces that didn't look happy. Drenvac stood among them, his expression blank. Jake had learned to read Valthir body language over the past month. Drenvac was angry. Furious even, but hiding it well. After the ceremony, servants brought food and drink. Jake found himself surrounded by curious Valthir, asking questions about Earth and human culture. He answered as best he could, but he kept one eye on Drenvac. The courtier was talking quietly with others, planning something. Jake could feel it. You're being paranoid, Amy said, noticing his attention. Am I? That guy has hated us since day one. Lots of people here hate us. We can't worry about all of them. But Jake's instincts were screaming. Something was wrong. The attack came during the middle of the celebration. Masked figures appeared from hidden passages, moving toward the queen. They wore no identification, but they moved like trained killers. Jake reacted instantly. He threw himself toward Saravin, shouting a warning. Velthar appeared from the other side, his weapon already drawn. The first assassin reached them. Velthar engaged him, their blades clashing. The second assassin aimed at the queen, but Lisa was there, her medical training including combat skills most people forgot about. She struck the assassin's wrist, making him drop his weapon. Ben had been near the palace security controls. Always paranoid, he had hacked into them days ago. Now he triggered every alarm in the building. Guards came running, but there was a third assassin. This one was faster, more skilled. He got past the defenses and reached the queen. Jake saw it happening, saw the weapon rising, saw Saravin's eyes widen. He didn't think. He just moved. The blast hit him in the chest. Pain exploded through his body. He felt himself falling. But he had knocked Saravin out of the way. She was safe. The assassin turned to run, but Amy was already there. Her shot was perfect, dropping the assassin before he could escape. Guards flooded the room. The remaining assassins were captured. But Jake was on the floor, bleeding, struggling to breathe. Jake! Saravin knelt beside him, her hands already glowing with healing light. Don't you dare die on me, human! Wasn't planning on it, he managed to say. Everything hurt. Lisa pushed through the crowd, her medical supplies in hand. "Move! Let me work!" Together, Lisa and the Queen worked to save Jake's life. The wound was bad, but not fatal. The armor he wore had absorbed most of the blast. As his vision cleared, Jake saw guards dragging someone forward. Drenvac, struggling and shouting, "I did nothing! I'm innocent!" But Ben had already found evidence. His communicator was sending signals to the assassins. He coordinated the whole thing. Velthar stepped forward, fury on his face. "You betrayed your queen! You betrayed your people! Why?" Drenvac's mask finally dropped. "Because she's weak! She relies on humans of all things. We are Valthyr. We should rule through strength and honor, not by listening to primitive aliens." "Those primitive aliens saved your life too," Saravin said coldly. "Take him away. He'll face trial for treason." As guards dragged Drenvac away, he shouted more accusations and curses, but no one listened. Jake spent the next day in the medical bay. His chest was bandaged and moving hurt, but he was alive. Saravin visited him, not as a queen, but as herself. "This is becoming a habit," she said, sitting beside his bed. "You taking hits meant for me." "Someone has to keep you safe," Jake replied. "I have guards for that." "Yeah, but they're not as charming as me." Saravin laughed. It was a beautiful sound. Then her expression grew serious. "You keep saving my life." "Why?" Jake thought about his answer. He could make a joke, deflect the question, but she deserved honesty. "Because you matter," he said simply. "Not just as a queen, but as a person. You're trying to do the right thing in impossible circumstances. Someone should have your back." "Is that all I am to you? Someone who needs protecting?" Jake met her eyes, those silver eyes that had first captured his attention in a distress message. "No, you're someone I respect, someone I admire, someone I—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Someone I care about." "A lot." Saravin reached out, taking his hand. "I've never met anyone like you, Jake Morrison. You don't see my crown or my title. You see me, the real me. Is that a bad thing? No. It's the best thing that's happened to me in years." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Saravin spoke again. "The alliance I proposed is being formalized. Humanity will be recognized as equal partners in Valthyr space. Full trading rights, mutual defense, cultural exchange." "That's huge," Jake said. "That could change everything for both our species." "It already has. You've shown my people that strength comes in many forms. That honor isn't just about following old traditions, that sometimes the best way forward is to try something completely new." Over the next weeks, Jake recovered. The formal alliance was signed. Human ships began arriving at Valthyr stations. Trade opened up. Cultural exchanges began. But more than the politics, a real friendship had formed between Jake and Saravin. They met regularly, discussing everything from military strategy to philosophy. She taught him about Valthyr history. He told her about Earth's long journey to the stars. The crew of the Wanderer became permanent residents of the palace. Amy trained Valthyr pilots in human tactics. Ben worked with their engineers, combining technologies. Lisa established a medical exchange program. They had found a home. One evening, Jake stood on a palace balcony looking at the stars. The Wanderer sat in the hangar below, repaired and upgraded with Valthyr technology. They could leave whenever they wanted, but he didn't want to leave. Saravin joined him on the balcony. "Thinking about traveling again?" "Just remembering where I came from," Jake said, "and thinking about where I'm going." "And where is that?" "Here," he said simply. "For as long as you'll have me." She smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. There's so much work to do. The Kreth will return eventually. We need to be ready." "We will be. Together." She moved closer, standing beside him. "You know, The nobles are starting to accept you. Some of them even admit you were right about tactics and strategy. Only took them a month and a half, Jake joked. Change is slow for the Valthyr, but it's happening. You're making it happen. They stood together, looking at the stars. Two people from different worlds, bound together by circumstance and choice. In the distance, sensors picked up movement. The Kreth Dominion was regrouping. They would return stronger and more prepared, but so would the Valthyr. And this time, they would have human allies fighting beside them. Jake smiled. He had come to this world as a mercenary looking for a paycheck. He had found something far more valuable. Purpose, family, a cause worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, he had found something else too. Something he saw in Saravin's eyes when she looked at him. Something that transcended species and culture. But that was a thought for another day. Right now there was work to do, an alliance to build, two species learning to work together, and somewhere in the darkness of space, enemies watching and waiting. Let them watch. Let them wait. Because Jake Morrison and the Valthyr Empire were ready for whatever came next. Together, they would face it all.